I think one of the most difficult things to do in this game is play a light cruiser in open water. And it's something you don't really want to do, but sometimes I think you have to. On a map like this, you just can't give up the 1, 2, 3 lines for free. Your team will just get crossfired, and your entire team holding in between C and D is going to die. So how do you do that? Well, assuming you've got a destroyer, whether it's divmate or random, what your goal is to match your concealment with the destroyer's concealment. So right now it's not quite matched up. That's why I'm kind of moving away from my destroyer here. And the goal is to get spotted at the same time. That way you're as close as possible to your friendly destroyer while not being detected. You want to surprise the potential enemy destroyer with your presence. And when you get spotted from a pretty far away compared to your DD, right? Like we have a 9.8 kilometer concealment, something like that. We get lit, but then the enemy gearing gets lit. That means that we pretty much matched up our concealment with our Holland friend perfectly. And what this means is this gearing is forced into a fight that he doesn't want to take. You could see he was already turning away since we were spotted just before our friendly Holland was. But now that we're in this fight, our Holland is able to play far more aggressive and feel like he can get this kill. Unfortunately, the gearing does manage to smoke up, so we didn't quite manage to kill him, and I'll be honest, my aim wasn't the best there. So if you want to help your DD, practice aiming. That's a really important one as well. But you notice how I also turned away. As soon as I was spotted, as soon as I started shooting, I turned out, I turned away. I purposefully positioned my ship in such a way that I was angled to everyone. And that's part of the difficult thing with playing cruisers in these open waters is that you're going to be showing broadside to someone most of the time. And there's very specific ways you want to position yourself. For example, I'm heading towards the enemy at this point, but it's really important that I'm basically showing flat broadside to this Bourgogne and potentially the Thunderer here. But what it does allow me to do is turn out and show my broadside more towards the border of the map. You notice we're getting a sharper and sharper angle here. That's really, really important, because if I was heading towards, let's say, this island in front of us, or more towards the middle of the map, and then decided to turn out, well, instead of starting to show my broadside more to the edge of the map, where no enemies are, I'd be turning to show my broadside to every person towards the middle of the map. And that's why you tend to want to angle yourself so that you're always shooting the person closest to the border. That's essentially the goal here, is to be always angled to the enemy team. Never ever show your broadside in these light cruisers, because a battleship only needs one good salvo and you're dead. So this positioning here that I'm doing is what I was talking about you shouldn't do. You notice how I'm turning and angling away from this Bourgogne, but instead of showing my broadside to the edge of the map, I'm showing my broadside to the middle of the map. So potentially the Moskva positioned on D5-ish could get a broadside shot into me. This is more dangerous, and that's why I'm hesitant to shoot here, but since the Moskva hasn't been spotted and he's not really shooting at me, I think I'm okay to take this engagement, but it's really not ideal. I would much rather have my guns on the other side of my ship and be moving in the other direction. That way I'd be angled to that Moskva. However, that Moskva is now spotted, so we know we're generally going to be okay from the middle of the map, and this positioning is fine. But as far as initially, we didn't know the Moskva had moved so far behind that island, and that makes it a little bit more risky. And you notice, we're 5 minutes in and I've hardly done any damage. Skipping ahead, it's 8 minutes left in this game. So I just cut out 6 minutes of doing 10,000 damage. Yeah, you gotta be patient. Patience if you're playing in these open water situations with a light cruiser. Of course, I don't blame these battleships for not pushing. You're gonna see exactly why you don't want to push into a light cruiser who knows how to kite and HE spam. But it does get a little boring, but I had to play this position because if we had allowed a Bourgogne and a Thunderer and a Gearing to roll down this flank, imagine what would have happened to our teammates south of C, south of D, trying to hold those positions. They would have been crossfired and probably would have died, and this game would have quickly turned into a blowout. So while I don't want to be in these open water positions as a light cruiser, sometimes I feel like I have to for the good of the team. And we're still going to do decent amount of damage in this game. As things tend to wind down, people get a little more aggressive and you're able to catch people pushing in a little bit more. Getting a little bit lucky too, of course, with this Bourgogne missing us. Something you can take advantage of is that shells tend to land short. I'm sure you all noticed that when you're playing your battleships or maybe some other ships, like even light cruisers, really. You can notice the shells landing short even here. You can abuse that by positioning yourself a little bit broadside, and then when somebody shoots, you can just turn away, and that's gonna help those shells land short. The auto-aim system isn't very helpful when somebody is turning out like that. So that's a way you can kind of abuse this poor aiming system and get away with being in open water, but of course, you will get punished every once in a while. A lot of good players know to overcompensate for this auto-aim to try and catch these cruisers a little bit more. So you're not going to get away with this every single time. There, we got incredibly lucky. So it's not a surefire thing. I would definitely recommend putting yourself on islands, positioning yourself with smoke screens, and playing a more normal light cruiser role most of the time. But not every game you're going to get the perfect situation, and sometimes you will need to play those open water positions. Let's say you get ocean, for example. An extreme example, but still, that can happen. And knowing what you can do or some best practices can help you have better games on those sorts of maps. Unfortunately, here at the end, our team kind of melted and we're left bow into a Thunderer. And this is the exact situation you don't want to be in a light cruiser. That's why I'm always positioning myself to kite away, to turn away, to get myself out of danger in the early game where I have the option. Here I had no option. I had to charge in for the cap and try and get it. But we're left in front of a Thunderer who has a good enough reload that we can't turn out. We can't get that full turn in without showing flat broadside. So this is going to be game over for me. Maybe I'm like a cat and I've used up my 9th life there, considering how well, or maybe not. We just dodged the Thunderer salvo there. The auto aim system is pretty magical, isn't it? We collect the gearing, but yeah, this game's over. My Worcester friend died on the other side there, and we're left in front of a gearing and a Marceau spamming us. But that's how I tend to approach some of these more open maps and positions where I don't feel the most comfortable in a light cruiser. But you can certainly make it work, and knowing how to do this can help you win more games where you're supporting your teammates. Obviously, this one didn't result in a win, unfortunately, but that's going to happen. It was a much closer game, though, I think, because we played on the flank and supported our team in holding that flank. We didn't push it, we didn't get over-aggressive, but we did prevent the enemy team from just plowing down the flank with a Bourgogne and Thunderer and crossfiring our team. Probably the game would have ended in 5 to 8 minutes, as some of these blowouts tend to. For the commander on the Worcester, I've been running a IFHE build. However, I did have a mission to start fires with cruisers, so I swapped over to one where I get much better fire chance, and that's why we actually burnt down that Bourgogne so quickly, instead of alpha damaging him down. Normally, I do prefer IFHE on this ship, just giving me that 32mm pen. It really pays off when you're firing at a Bourgogne or a Thunderer, for example. But this build is really good too, and probably better all around, since you still pen most cruisers, and you don't lose that fire chance. The upgrades, I think this is pretty standard. Again, keeping the radar, of course, that we want. And running reload mod. That's, I think, the best way I'd say to play it. Maybe some of these open water builds, if you're really good at aiming, you could run the range mod. But I think that's a bit of a fun meme if you want to try it out. But if you're trying to have the best overall experience in this ship, I would definitely recommend reload mod. But that's how I try to play open water maps and positions and try and keep my team from getting flanked. But overall, I'd say the Worcester is a great ship that's very versatile. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.